Showtime.
It's about that time.
Let's go.
You're right where you need to be. This is GCOM Radio.
Hardest radio station on the planet. Yeah.
Powered by Lyfeblood.com.
We certified.
And hosted by Nova Phoenix.
Give them that flavor.
What is happening, guys? What's happening? What is going down? Yes, it is I'm back here for another show for you guys for the week. And yeah, man, hopefully everything is good with you. How has everything been with you? Everything was good with me. It was beautiful. Yeah, man, a lot of things was happening. I'm a little late with the show. My bad. I had to do some things, take care of some things. So I am a bit late with getting that show up. Usually, for those listening to the show, I usually do it like every Wednesday, but this might be a late show in here. So I apologize for that. But you know, life takes its time and it takes precedent. So I have to just, prioritize, but I'm here nonetheless. I'm here. How is everybody? Like I said, so, I didn't get a chance to talk to you guys about, the nuclear attack and how to prepare for it because I just, I was going over an hour, but I'm here to do that, with you today and, or for this show. And, yeah, let's get into it. So, just prepare. It can get a little, depressing, but we're gonna get there. So I'm your host, Nova Finks, on GCOM Radio on iHeartRadio, and we are going to bring you how to prepare for a nuclear attack. Doing research on this, it's just fascinating that we're here again in this world having to talk about this topic because of what we're dealing with currently, what we see on the news, especially with Ukraine and Russia and everything that's going down. Where we're it seems like I think they said we're at the 12th hour of the doomsday clock, and it's coming close because you have two major nuclear powers that are in a supposed war, but of course it's a proxy war with the Ukrainians in the middle of the whole thing, and Russia is pretty much trying to take Ukraine. So I'm not going to get into the politics of it on the details because that's not what it's about. But yeah, we have a situation where Russia has invaded Ukraine, and there's just a possibility that it can really spill out into other involving other countries. And the UK is already on it. Like I said, the United Kingdom Prime Minister is already talking about giving them tanks and weapons and training and all that stuff, and US is already giving them Ukraine billions of dollars, and it's getting out of control. Of course, the UK Prime Minister is expecting other Western countries to come help Ukraine, and of course that would be technically a world war involving other countries. And of course we have the China situation. That's the other thing that's burning in the back burner and building up day by day. And of course it's over Taiwan on the manufacturing of microchips, and Taiwan deserves its independence. China wants to take it. United States doesn't want that to happen because Taiwan manufactures a considerable amount of chips for the world. Now, of course, there's already the CHIPS Act, and I spoke about it on the show before, where United States has been left with no choice but manufacture its own chips. But of course, until then, right now, Taiwan is pretty much the golden goose in terms of microchips, and microchips are in everything, and it's a hot commodity at this point. So we're dealing with that and the Chinese balloons, and it's flying over Northern America and Canada and all this. It's all of it, and it comes down to it. Someone is going to do something stupid, and it's going to set it off. In terms of, at least in terms of direct war first, if getting American boots on the ground somewhere, and then China is retaliation. So there's a lot of things that can really go wild, go astray And that's what people are concerned about, man. Where are we going with this? The last time, as I said before, we dealt this with the Cuban Missile Crisis when the Russians sent their own nuclear subs right by Cuba. And it was a scary moment in time. Well, we don't realize it because we're the new gen, but speak to the baby boomers and they will tell you how crazy it was. President Kennedy was very nervous. He was very nervous on what could have happened. And to be a president in that moment, having to make decisions that can literally scorch half the earth. You don't know the amount of pressure that was on that man's shoulders trying to deal with Russians in America's backyard. Now is the exact total opposite. America, oh no, but what are you talking about? America's not there. Yeah, well, you do have NATO. NATO's encroaching on land. Is getting right at the back door of Russia, and things have been set off. Like I said, I won't go into detail. That's not what this show is about. So that is what is going on right now that got people talking about nuclear war. It's on the news. It's on all the major channels, and the journalists are talking about it. And, it's something that we do have to consider, especially if we do reside in major cities. Major cities are not they are the primary targets. If there ever was a nuclear war, it's not going to go to Kansas. It's not going to go to Louisiana. It's just the reality we have to deal with. Now, Russia, it's a wild thing that Russia did test a nuclear bomb at the time of the days after, of course, with the United States and Hiroshima and Nagasaki, Japanese cities got bombed right after Pearl Harbor, and it was a whole war that was going on with Japan. So after, in 1961, Russia tested their own nuclear bomb. It was called the Tsar Bomba. That's Russian for King of Bombs. It was a 50,000 megaton blast, 3,000 times more powerful than the Hiroshima and Nagasaki bombs. And they set it off in northern Russia. It's like a little sliver of, I wouldn't even say too small, but it's kind of like it's kind of like the shape of Florida in a way, like long, slender island off the northern coast of Russia. And they set it off, and it was, as I said, what it was a Tsar Bomba. And right after that, the United States got shook. Of course, they set this thing off. And there was an actual plane, United States plane, that was flying constantly every day. I think after that for the next 20 years or something. I had no idea. Where, of course, they were there to get data, to get intel, or if there was ever a volley of nuclear missiles that was going to be thrown at the United States, and they were up there, and who knew? Of course, why would you know? But this is what the United States was doing to prepare if any missiles kind of flew off into the air, ready to get into nuclear war. Is madness. And there was also the time where they were teaching kids to get under their school desks and put their hands over their heads to protect themselves from any nuclear event. Now, how does that really make sense? I do not know, because what is the difference between sitting in your desk and being under your desk? But it is what it is. Also, at the time, they had they still have them in schools now. They're fallout shelter signs. They're like circles that are divided into triangles, black and yellow color. It's probably still hanging above your school door. And that was to show people that there was a shelter that you can be in case of a nuclear explosion or a nuclear event, to protect yourself from the initial, blast. So yeah, let's fast forward a couple decades. That kind of calmed down and got into a Cold War, and it's settled. And people are like, wow, we got to watch out for World War III. We don't want to get into it. And, we have all these countries that are nuclear armed, and here we are, like literally having this discussion about nuclear armament, or what would happen if we are in this nuclear war, because it is very possible. Now, you think we could be very careful in terms of how we move our pieces against on the chessboard, as I always say, so we don't kind of like rattle the cage, or do saber rattling, as they say. That saber rattling can kind of escalate into the actual pushing of the big red button. with the whole, the pipeline that exploded, the Nord Stream pipeline. And it's like, people are saying, there was an article that came out was saying where there were pro-Ukrainian group. It was U.S. intelligence who were saying a pro-Ukrainian group was more than likely involved with the destruction of the Nord Stream pipeline. The Nord Stream pipeline is owned by a Russian, oil company called Gazprom, Gazprom. And, there's not too many players in the game that can really do something like that. It ain't going to be Thailand. It's not going to be Singapore. It ain't going to be a I don't know, pick a country, South Africa. It ain't gonna be none of them places. There's only a few people that have the resources, the manpower, the equipment, the intelligence that would be able to. And it's China, there's Russia, and the United States. It ain't gonna be China because China is cool with Russia. You can't. You can't listen. These articles are talking about a pro-Ukrainian group. Listen, you cannot fool people anymore. If anybody's listening to the show that's from major news media, from any radio or television or online site, you cannot fool people anymore. Not just the American people, but people, because there's too many alternate sources of information and the trust has eroded. So it's not just a matter of having that sleek, fancy news desk with the handsome newscaster man and the pretty newscaster woman and telling this information, and people just sitting at the couch just saying, wow, that's not anymore. People are hip to the game. There's been so much information to put out there that the major news media reads from scripts. They read from the script in every city, every county, and people are hip to the game. So people have moved off to alternate sources of information where they get the news, or where people are right on the ground for whatever's happening, and it streams right through the internet. So that is a big difference. The internet and alternate sources of information. And to be honest, a lot of it is true. Some of it is kind of, but a lot of it is true. And people say, I'm tired of being lied to. I'm tired of getting into hoobly hoo. I'm getting my information from other people that I do trust. And it's working. It's working to the point where now the major news media has no choice but to pay attention to certain stories where you think it would break on, say, NBC or CNN, and it doesn't. But the people are streaming the information, the video, the talking points, the data, the news articles, the articles that actually do back the truth. It's sparingly, but it does happen. And when you do the research and you put it together and you put it on the video, it's like, man, you connect the dots here. People are not stupid. So then it's got to the point where now the major news media is following the alternate sources that's online. That's only, whether it's YouTube or whether it's social media, wherever it's happening, people are saying, screw you, we're doing this our own way, and this is what you got. And then when you lie to the American people and just lie to the people enough times, they just get tired of it. It's like, all right, listen, you got me the first, second, third, 10th time, but not this time around. And that's where we're at, especially when in particular the American people. They're just tied right and left. People that believe in right-leaning issues and people that believe in left-leaning issues. But what's slowly coming to the middle, people are starting to understand, like, wait a second, they're lying on the right, whatever right-leaning news sources that you're listening to, as far as righty people, and then the lefty people, they're saying the same thing. It's like, I can't entirely trust you. So people on the ground, for whatever you believe in, are slowly moving and shaking hands like they are lying to both of us. And here is where we have it. So, let me tell you, if and ever that were to happen and we are stuck in the middle of this whole thing, unfortunately, who suffers from nuclear war? The people themselves. There's only a small group of people, 100 folks, that is controlling the lives of millions and millions and millions of folks. And they do say the first cities that would be attacked would be New York, Chicago, Houston, Los Angeles, San Francisco, and DC. Washington, D.C. Now, this is what I found online, but honestly, I really don't think any of these, there's only two primary cities that would get hit. let's keep it real. It's New York and it's Washington, D.C. D.C.'s ahead, New York's the heart. It's the only two major cities. If they wanted to really do something, I mean, I'm from New York, and that's a real thing I think about. It's like, where else? And of course, living in New York, what we had to go through, we had the bombing. Everybody knows the Twin Towers that fell, right? And that's something that has been seared into the minds and the hearts of not just New Yorkers, but people around the world, seeing those planes flying into those two towers and seeing the destruction and the fear and the, you know, the mayhem, the chaos. I mean, it was something that you will never forget. And it happened. And we have, New York has rebuilt. Of course, we have the Freedom Tower. And to be honest, I haven't been there yet. I was just talking about it the other day. I haven't really been there. It's funny as it may sound. But yeah, we had that moment. But then we also had the World Trade Center when it was the Twin Towers. We had a terrorist attack even before 9/11. It happened in 1993, February 26th. I remember when I was young. I remember when it came on TV and seeing the people kind of like, everybody was pouring out the Twin Towers and people were crying and people were bloody. And it was actually came from an explosion that happened. It created like 100-foot crater inside of the World Trade Center garage. These folks actually parked the van in there, and it went off, and 6 people died, and a lot of folks, as I said, came rushing out, and it was madness. It was madness. And actually, after the fact, and the funny thing is, the U.S. intelligence knew that there was talk of a terrorist attack that was coming. They didn't know when, but they knew from whatever sources that they were picking this up from. The chatter was starting to pick up, saying that this was going to happen. So they had an idea, but they didn't know when or how. And it happened. But after it did happen, they went to town. The FBI and all, basically the lettermen went after it and actually neutralized a second plot after the World Trade Center bombing. And they actually, they were found, they were in the middle of these terrorists in the middle of making the bombs when they got raided and these folks got arrested. And it was in Queens. And I swear I could remember that they found another cell like right off of Atlantic Avenue train station, where of course but we have the stadium there now. It wasn't too far from Atlantic Avenue, and I remember seeing that on the news. They caught them too, so it was crazy. Maybe I'm mixing up things, but I do remember back then, it was Brooklyn, but I'm reading up saying that they caught them in Queens. But it was a scary situation, and when they found them the second time, it really had people on their P's and Q's and everything. I mean, the smallest, most mundane sound, people were like, huh, what? And that's what New York had to go through, and we go through currently right now. So like I said, if it's going to happen, it's DC or New York, and New York already has a history, so it's going to happen here. All right. As I said, it ain't going to happen in freaking Kansas or Utah. There's, it's madness. It's madness. So doing this research, is funny that I found this guy that actually created a website on what an attack or an explosion, nuclear explosion, would look like. His name is Alex Wellerton. Let me see if I have his name right here. Alex Wellerstein, excuse me. And he's actually a historian of science and nuclear technology. He's a professor at the Stevens Institute of Technology in Hoboken, New Jersey. And he's actually done history on nuclear weapons, and he's published a couple of books on the history of eugenics. That's kind of interesting. He's been a web developer, a database programmer, and a graphic designer, and he used all of these tools to actually create his own website. It's called nuclearsecrecy.com. So you could go online, like I said, go to nuclearsecrecy.com. You can put /nuke map, NUKE map /, and it actually looks like it's interesting. It's pretty basic. On the left, on 2/3 of the screen of the window, it looks like it's like Google Maps. Typically, a map of that looks similar. It's probably the exact same thing as Google Maps, but on the other side, it's a gray border, and it just has all the information where you can actually put in, just so you can see what type of damage a nuclear blast can have in your particular city. Now, I'm on the site here, and I could click on the area, go to New York, right? It says type in your city. I said, okay, I already know. Let's go Manhattan. I mean, go. Let's put the yield. Let's say it's Hiroshima. Hold on. They say Hiroshima was 1,000 kiloton. Let me see, just make sure. Nuclear bomb, Hiroshima, kiloton, because they do it in kilotons. This site does it in kilotons. Let's see here. Let me see if I get that right. 2 atomic from uranium 200%. And they say it was, okay, that's not the right site. Kiloton, how much? I can't type today. It's crazy. 15 kilotons, right? So 15 kilotons. So in the other section, you put 15 kilotons, and then let's say there are other options: air burst, surface, other effects, casualty. So I'll click in casualties and radioactive fallout, and then there's the red button that says detonate, and then now it's going to tally up what would be the fatalities and the injured if a 15 kiloton bomb went off in the heart of Manhattan. And that's crazy. Now they're saying is 72,000 people would be dead and 190,000 people would be injured. Now, the interesting thing about this site, it has the map, right? You see the explosion, and there is actually rings. Basically, I forgot the name of the word here to tell you guys there, but there are rings where it shows you the distance of the blast from ground zero to what would be on the outside, and it's different colors, and these colors represent the fireball radius, heavy blast damage, of course, a fireball, the initial explosion, and you, of course, that everybody's seen on video on YouTube, the heavy blast damage. There's moderate blast damage. There's radiation radius. Okay, how much of that radiation is going to actually, in that initial explosion, spread? The thermal radiation, that's the heat, that could be 3rd-degree burns, and there's just light damage. I encourage people to go to the site. It is very eerie. It's scary. But you can actually see a visual. It's not the same thing. I'm talking to you guys on this podcast, but when you go to that site, you can see it. It also actually gives you the fallout. Basically, what after the explosion, you're going to have fallout, and that's the radioactive particles that's going to come back down. But now, of course, as we know, it's not going to fall straight down, but it's actually going to be carried by the wind. And the only way we're going to know how far it goes depends on the direction of the wind and how strong the wind is blowing. And I see on the site, it always says the same thing. It is going to blow northeast. It's going to blow northeast, and I can zoom in and zoom out, and it covers pretty much a big part of Connecticut. And it goes as far as Waterbury. So of course, that's minimal radiation, but you know, the heavy radiation from the wind, it goes past New Rochelle, into Mamaroneck, into Harrison, Rye, and a little into Connecticut, man. So it is a very dangerous thing when just a level of, man, it's crazy. The 15 kilotons. Now imagine if it was the Tsar Bomba, the king of bombs. It would basically cover, and I did this already before, it basically covered all of Manhattan, New Jersey, and Queens and Brooklyn. It was devastating. It was devastating. So I encourage people to go to that site and check it out. It's interesting visual to see what the type of damage. Now, of course, the best place to be in a nuclear bomb explosion is at the very center. You'll just be vaporized. Who I fear for the most are the people on the outside, the people that survive and they have to deal with the radiation and everything that comes with that. Now they're saying there's a damage zone, and experts say there's like about 10 seconds after a 1 megaton bomb, the nuclear fireball would be a mile in diameter. And the fireball can be as many times brighter than the sun, even at 50 miles away. The thermal flash can have severe burns as far as 20 miles away of the flesh. Severe burns 20 miles away, and they say radiation will extend 1 mile in all directions. And of course, the symptoms of heavy radiation exposure would be bloody diarrhea, hair loss, fever, intense thirst. And they say, depending on how bad you're exposed, you could die within days. There is the fallout zone. I said that before. The fallout zone is, of course, after the bomb explodes, you're going to have radioactive dust come back down. They say really about 15 minutes you have to get into a safe space before you actually come in direct contact with this radiation dust and material. And they also say dirt, depending if it was, sometimes the bombs can explode above ground or above the surface, or it can hit right at the surface. That is also radioactive. The dirt and the rain, that will be radioactive. So it'll behoove you that if you're well aware that there's a nuclear missile coming your way, it'll behoove you to get out of Dodge. And if you somehow survive the blast, you have 15 minutes to evacuate before the radioactive dust comes back down towards the ground. The other thing, of course, as I said, where the wind blows, that it's not just going to fall directly down, and it's going to blow northeast. I've done it every time on Nuclear Secrecy. It always blows northeast, and it can spread for miles. And they say about if you are 20 miles from the location of the explosion, you have about 25 minutes to find shelter from the fallout. So they are basing it also on distance. So if you're 20 miles away, great. If you're 40 miles away, they say you have 45 minutes to get out or get in and seek shelter before the fallout drops down. So that's nuts. The other thing you have to worry about, which is, say you're clear of the explosion, you survive the explosion, you survive the fallout, and I'll get into a little bit later how you can survive a fallout. But say all of that clears, depending on how serious the volley of nuclear missiles happens, the after effects, the negative after effects of that is nuclear winter. Now, nuclear winter is the chilling of the climate after a massive nuclear explosion. That's the material, the dust clouds, the sooty smoke, all that. It's also what they say is black carbon. Somehow, black carbon can actually a material or particles that can block out the sun. And you can look it up, black carbon. It's an interesting the scientific effect on how black carbon affects the atmosphere and how it blocks out the sun. And that can contribute to this nuclear winter you'll go through. And it will block out the sun. Plant life will not escape it. Animals will not escape it. It will be environmental destruction, total annihilation of the immediate environment when it comes to nuclear winter, not just the immediate, but or wherever the area of the again, one of the scenarios was, what is there, a volley on both sides? Russia throws a bunch of nuclear bombs, nuclear missiles, and and the United States responds with their volley of nuclear missiles, and it depends on how that long it would last. They say sometimes, depending on how many, it could be 10 years. They say just be prepared. Nuclear winter can last like about 10 years. So again, that depends on how much nuclear bombs are being exploded over a particular area. Now, that's not what I have an issue with so much. I think we will not have to deal with nuclear missiles. For some reason, I feel that's not going to happen. It's possible, not to say it's impossible, but I don't think that's going to happen like in Terminator. I think it was Terminator 3 or whatever. And you saw, the actual, the robots set off the nuclear missiles, and you saw it happen. It just started hitting the earth like meteorite. I don't think it's going to happen like that. But what I think that is more of a reality are dirty bombs. So what is a dirty bomb? That's a spent uranium rod, wherever you get it from. And then they can literally tie that to an explosive device, TNT, C4, whatever you call it. And that in itself, it's not going to cause considerable damage, but the damage it will cause is radiation exposure from the small pieces of uranium that is blown all over the place. And the other big thing that can be just as bad as an actual nuclear bomb. What is that? Fear. Fear will take over people, because yes, you'll find out, say a dirty bomb explodes. It's not going to be that serious if you live out far off in Queens, if you live, say, in Westchester, if you live somewhere in Brooklyn. It's not going to be that serious, right? Because it's going to be a localized area. But soon as the news finds out that, say, a terrorist bomb exploded, whatever it is, and then they find out that people are getting sick, and they don't know what's happening, all these symptoms come, and then after the investigation, shortly afterwards, they say, oh my God, it was a dirty bomb. That's when the fear sets in. People will start to get worried, and that in itself will destroy New York City. That fear alone, forget the explosion, will destroy New York City. And I say that because we understand what happened with COVID. When COVID happened, nobody was on the streets. Everybody was sheltered in. You know how it went down. The city was it was nuts. Now, people were sheltered in. I mean, you could get to any part of New York City in like a half hour. So most of the time when you're traveling in the car trying to get from, say, to Washington Heights, and you're trying to go all the way down to Queens, it takes like 2 hours. That's from the traffic. But when COVID was in, when we were right in the middle of COVID, and I was driving with the fam, whatever, just trying to get some food, it took like 20 minutes. It was crazy. I was like, I never experienced that before. It took 20 minutes of straight driving, and it was, again, in that situation, there were literally no cars on the road. Crazy. But in this situation, it's not people sheltering in. It'll probably people be getting out of Dodge if they found out that it was wasn't just a typical bomb like in World Trade Center, but it was a dirty bomb. That's what people fear. That would kill New York. People will never come back. People would never come back because they would be too afraid. I had a friend of mine that he worked in Lower Manhattan. They relocated him in Boston. It was supposed to be temporary, but he stayed up in Boston. He told me, "Yo, man, I'm not coming back now. I'm done." He was done. He wasn't coming back now. So, in terms of if it was a dirty bomb, people will definitely not come back. Man. And I even get into the economic part of it. That's the collateral damage when it comes to a small nuclear, a dirty bomb detonation. The economic damage. Oh my God! So this is not far off, because this scenario actually did happen in Ukraine, as a matter of fact. For those that don't know, it happened in Chernobyl, Ukraine. It was a nuclear accident that happened on April 26, 1986. It was just a flawed reactor design that was operated from people that were not trained well. And an explosion happened, and 70% when it exploded, 70% of the fallout landed in Belarus, and the other 30% landed in Ukraine and Russia. I mean, 116,000 people were living within Chernobyl at the time. Most of them evacuated. People got out of Dodge when this took place. Excuse me. I just finished eating. I got the burps. But the wild part of it is 1,000 people returned to live there unofficially in the exclusion zone, even though the experts were saying that everything was toxic. The soil, the food, the livestock, the atmosphere, it was radioactive, way above safe levels. But people 1,000 folks decided to move back in. Sentimental reasons, a variety of different reasons why move back. They say there's about 100 people that still remain in the exclusion zone. And they're saying that once, these folks pass away, then Chernobyl with the exclusion zone will no longer have, people will no longer have access to live in the exclusion zone. But the wild part about it is 2,000 people still work in areas within the exclusion zone. That's like sentry guards, firemen, service staff. The workers in the exclusion zone are restricted to a cycle of 15 working days only. 15 working days in the zone, followed by 15 days working outside. And they have to rotate in order to keep the radioactive levels within a safe measurement or, parameters for people that work in, I don't know. Yo, man. It just reminds me of a movie, and I don't want to say it. It was a horror movie. Man, you know what I'm talking about. If you listen to the show right now, it was crazy. I don't understand why people move back. Now, I kind of do, because when what was going on in East Palestine, Ohio, I saw when one of the individuals was speaking to someone that lives in the neighborhood. He said his friend and his mother stayed there right in the area, and they were like almost, I believe, almost ground zero to where the tanker turned over, the locomotive or whatever you want to call it, and this guy went back. So I understand there's sentimental value. They don't want to leave. They're not going anywhere, and that's the same thing that happened in Chernobyl. Now there's actually a documentary that they did. You could probably YouTube it. It's on YouTube about Chernobyl, and they're actually walking through the city. Of course, it's suited and booted in the proper gear, and it's so eerie, man, because everything was left right where it was. They went to a school, the books were there, the chairs were out. People's homes. There was like coffee cups and everything just right there in place, and people. It was wild, man. And you went to the playground. It was like almost like Terminator. If you watch Terminator with Arnold Schwarzenegger and they do the opening or a certain scene, it was wild. It was just like that. But the wild thing is also towns developed around the border of the zone, which the experts said it was safe to live. Now, the unexpected turnout was there was a low cost in property. People wanted to buy property, businesses. Entrepreneurs came in and was like, well, this is an inexpensive property. They bought that stuff up, it was abandoned warehouses, and they started businesses. And then the local government that provided like tax exemptions and like incentives for health care for the employees, clean food and water, programs for economic rehabilitation. I mean, I guess they figured like, hey, man, we got to do something for these people if they're going to be here, right? So we might as well give them something. That's wild. And there's actually jobs around the power plant itself there. So I don't know, man. They're saying about 3,000 people work there where the nuclear plant is, but it's no longer a nuclear plant. Excuse me. It was contained, so people don't have to worry about being exposed to high levels of radiation. And right now they have a solar power plant in its place. They have about 3,800 solar panels that produces energy, and the Ukrainian government is taking measures to rebuild with sustainable energy instead of nuclear. Wild stuff, right? I ain't going there. If I'm Ukraine, I'm not going back. I'm going someplace else. I'll be damned. If something goes down in New York is going to be ghost town. Probably sure there's going to be people hanging around, but New York is rap. Yo, people, can you imagine? Can you imagine? So now what do you do if something like this happens, right? Say a nuclear bomb explodes and it's the after mushroom cloud, and immediately, if you're aware that a nuclear explosion is going to happen, they say stay away from windows, outer walls, roofs. You got to go underground. If you have a basement underground, go right to it, right? Go into a corner. If you don't have a basement, go to your house or to a center of a building, sit in the stairwell. Turn off your fans, turn off your heating AC units, block your chimneys, everything. anywhere there's any cracks where after the explosion and the fallout starts to come down, you want to make sure you seal your home. You keep whatever radioactive dust from coming in. Now, I know that's a little bit impossible, but do what you can after the blast. If you happen to be outside exposed to the radiation after the blast event, they say cover your mouth with cloth material, whatever it is that you have. Once you get inside, take off all your clothes. You put them in the plastic bag. You seal them off. You immediately take a shower with soap and shampoo. They say don't use conditioner. Don't use conditioner. Something in the conditioner is a binder that can actually be more dangerous to you, and it can bind with the radioactive dust, and you can expose yourself to dangerous levels. So no conditioner. They say soap is fine and shampoo is fine. As far as food is concerned, you can only eat canned food. Only canned food. Nothing that's exposed out to open air, you can't eat it. So you got to have a good, hopefully at the time you have a nice stock of canned food in your home. And you have to be in there for at least 24 hours after the initial explosion. You have to give time for the fallout to dissipate. The dust comes down and settles. And they're saying, the experts say that radiation will go down to quote unquote normal levels after 24 hours. So that's madness. Now, if in case you hear something about this beforehand, right? You say you hear about it and it's going to happen. Now, I always tell people, have your emergency backpacks. All right. Have your emergency backpacks. Have it on you. You could go online. You can get an emergency backpack. I found one myself. I haven't gotten it yet, but I will be getting mine soon. It's this one is, what is it called? Stealth Angel Outdoor and Urban Survival 5-person emergency kit. It has a bunch of stuff in there. It has 4-ounce water pouches, 3,400 calorie food bars, 50 water purification tablets. In case you're out there and you're dealing with dirty water, you can use this tablet to clean the water, or they actually have a device. It's a very simple device. It looks like how should I put it? Like a small plastic pipe, like about the size, a little bit larger than a cigar, the larger cigars, and you can actually put water through it and actually cleans the water. I mean, I've seen this online on YouTube. It's amazing. You can actually get that. Other things that you have in this bag is flashlights, keychain LED flashlights. You want to make sure that you have your bright stick. Of course, the bright stick where you break and you can use that to see in the dark, a survival whistle. They say they have body warmers, blankets, ponchos with hoods, and actually some emergency go bags have tents in them in case you're outside and you need to get yourself out from the elements. Say it's cold or something like that, you can make a tent. Make sure you have tools with you, a compass, multi-tool, what do you call it? The survival knives, everything. You can have everything on there. Safety goggles, durable work gloves, and such and so forth. This thing also has toothbrushes, toothpaste, soap, facial tissues, moist towelettes, a hygiene kit. And the other thing, which is most important, a first aid kit. Make sure you have a first aid kit with you in case someone gets injured. All this goes for $219.29. I think it is definitely a dope buy to have. I say if the adults can have it, or have whoever's grown in the house, they can each have a bag. The small kids don't need to have a bag. If you want to get emergency go bags for your kids that are 10, 8, 9, you'll be my guest. But I think it should go with the adults. You want to take the weight off the children. I don't know how big these bags are, but that's what I think. The other thing is, you want to make sure you have escape routes. Make plans with nearby friends in the state over, like in Delaware or Maryland or the DMV, or in Maine. Say, hey, can I stay for a couple of days? Have an escape route. What you're going to take, what roads you're going to take, what bridges you want to avoid, what tunnels you want to avoid. If you say you live in, say, New York, again, you live out in Long Island, Maybe you can have access to the boat and you can jump to Connecticut. You can jump over to South Jersey. You can get over on that side, because I'm telling you, if you wait too long, if you hear something about some nuclear, say a dirty bomb happens, and you wait too long, you can't drive, because all the main arteries in New York to try and get out, it's going to be blocked. It's going to be just like The Last of Us or the other zombie joint. I can't remember my man Rick. Yeah. So as soon as but you got to be on it. As soon as you hear it, you could hop in your car with your go bag and everything, and you could drive out the city. Say it's too late and people are running out. Try to get as far as you can, and on a pre-planned route that you can do. Buddy up with people for folks. Talk about it in your community. Okay, who are we going to buddy up with? Who are we going to talk with? If you have a boat, as I said, but also be prepared to walk. Be prepared to walk, because if you do take your car and then you're stuck, because people will abandon their cars right where they are. Have everything that you need on you so you can walk, and have comfortable shoes on, where you know that you're going to be walking 4 miles. It's a real thing. It's a real thing. They're saying places to stay is in like the West Coast. As far as the West Coast is concerned, it's on that Oregon. They said getaway states, North California, Western Texas. As far as the East Coast, it's saying Maine. Maine is a good state to go to. For me in particular, hey, my wife's Canadian. Going up north. If for some reason, as I heard, in emergency situations at the border, they will let Canadian citizens in, but United States people may not be able to get in. Can you imagine what the northern border would be like? It'd probably be the same thing. So maybe you need to choose the other direction, down south. Make moves in South Carolina, North Carolina, Florida, Georgia, Texas, Louisiana. Go. What do you call it? What's the other place? Tennessee. Yeah, man. Find your way down to other places. If you have family or friends in that area, just give them a call. Some of them might laugh you off, but I'm like, on the real, just in case. Man, if it so happens, can I stay with you for a couple days? And of course, I'm not too crazy about cash, because the other thing with nuclear explosions, what's involved, I think it's called EMPs. That's electromagnetic pulse that can down anything that has electric power. So just in case that you have to deal with something like that, carry cash on you. Anything that you can go into a store so you could buy some things. A couple $100, $800 or something like that, so you can walk into a store, stay at a hotel in a neighboring state or something like that, and then you can make your way to where you need to go to. In case you need any more information as dealing with nuclear and a nuclear event, you can go to www.ready.gov/radiation. And I do have it here. Did I have it here? Close that. Here we go. Yeah, ready.gov radiation. It gives you all the information, radiation emergencies, how to prepare. Same information that I told you, probably some other information that I didn't have an opportunity to tell you. It has a number of different things that you can use, sources to further educate yourself on what to do during this event. Now, this is very depressing. I do understand, but these are things that we do think about when we're looking at what's happening between Russia and U.S. You never know. And as I said, it's already happened in New York, and I think New Yorkers should be the first Americans should be on their P's and Q's, having what they need, because it's already happened to us. So it's not like this flights of fancy, or so we're going down some rabbit hole or something. It's a real thing. It's happened twice here already. We do not doubt that it can happen again. So so sorry for such a depressing show, but it's something to talk about, man. If there's anything I did miss, talk it about it amongst yourselves. Really have some real conversations with your wives, your husbands, your parents, on where to go, what to do, what to have, and be ready to skip town, man. Be ready to skip town. So that is the show. I appreciate you guys for listening to me, sharing this information, and hopefully if I'm trying to reach out to a couple of people. If there's any additional information that I could give with some experts to talk about this same situation as I did, I will have them. We'll do it on the YouTube channel. And please subscribe to GCOM Radio on anywhere where you listen to podcasts, but definitely on iHeartRadio. Go to my YouTube channel, subscribe, hit the notification bell, let you know when the show is coming. And yeah, man, stay in tune. Let's stay in network. And I'll get out of here. All right, yo, I'm out. Peace.
Yo, check it.
You just listened to GCOM Radio, powered by Lyfeblood.com. For the global community,
We worldwide, baby.
see you in the next go-round. From right here to your town, we out.